Hey, this is Tracii Guns, and you're listening live, kind of, to BackstageAxxess.com.
Oh yeah, crank it up. I gotta tell you a little story. You ain't gonna believe this, man.
This is Chris with BackstageAxxess.com. We have guitarist Tracii Guns with us today to talk about his brand new band, Devil City Angels. Well, Tracii, welcome to BackstageAxxess.com, and thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. We do appreciate it.
No problem.
So let's talk about this new project of yours, Devil City Angels. How did you guys first get together?
Okay. Well, in the very beginning, Ricky and I had done a Who tribute show with a bunch of people, and we were kind of grouped together in the same band to perform two Who songs. And when we were done, Sean McNabb, who was our bass player in that little show, he had said that we should start a band called Guns and Rockets. And it was a big joke, and it was funny, and we all laughed. And then, of course, the next day, we called each other and said, hey, we should do something. And that's how it started.
Okay.
Pretty simple. Pretty organic.
Okay. Now, Eric Brittingham from Cinderella was in there for the recording of the album. Now, he's
That's
out.
Right.
What was his reason for moving on?
I think, we're just adults, and when you're adults, you have bills and, different kinds of responsibilities than you do when you're younger. And, he's living in Nashville, we're living in L.A.
Okay.
It was just, a real grind on him to, keep coming out here. And then, we were putting him out, in these places where we were recording and stuff out of the middle of nowhere, because we were renting a house.
Okay.
In the middle of the desert, where we basically recorded the album. And, I just think it was a little much for him.
Okay, so how did Rudy Sarzo end up coming on board?
Well, Rudy and I have another band called Gunzo.
Right.
And when that all went down, I told the guys that Rudy would definitely do this as well. And I said, hey, you want to do that? And he said, yeah. That was really simple. It's a pretty tight-knit group of guys, that I hang around with, and we're all kind of always involved in everybody's crap,
Now, how did the songwriting process for this new record work? Did you bring ideas to the table or write as a group? How did that happen?
The very first song we did was a song called All My People, and that was something that Brandon had recorded, years earlier, something like 6 or 7 years earlier. And I heard that song, and I was like, but I didn't think it was, where it needed to be. I was like, hey, let's work on this song. And we did, and we came out with, that was the very first thing we recorded, and that recording, the same recording that's on the album. And that took a day to put that, together and get all that. And Eric was out, and we were all together at the studio the very first day we ever got together. And so we just knew that, after recording that, listening back, and we sent it to a few people, and the reaction was really good. Then basically everything else except, one or two were completely built from the ground up, and very quickly, too. We wrote those songs, I would say, in a total of, 12 hours, over a long period of time. But, the amount of effort put into writing the song was a very short amount of time. And, fast forward to the recording progress, to that process. That's when, you really start, moving things around and looking at the songs and making them as special as they can be. And we did a great job. It really was low stress.
Okay. Now, the album, I want to say it's feel-good music because it just has that vibe about it. What kind of vibe were you going for with this record? Did this all just kind of happen naturally once you guys got together?
Well, I think that between Eric and Ricky and I, we wanted to make kind of a nostalgic record of the stuff that we grew up listening to. Everything from Aerosmith, like Billy Squier, who's that band, Saturday Night, all these weird kind of rock bands that we really grew up on. Cheap Trick's a huge influence on this record, obviously. And then some of the heavier stuff, getting into Van Halen 1 and stuff like that. And that was really where the three of our, that was our focus, was like to recreate something that we could listen to and be, really happy, in our record collection, our personal record collections. And then Brandon, on the other hand, he's a lot younger than us. He's probably 20 years younger. And, and he's like a real rock and roller, but, he has some modern influences. And just a blend, we got really lucky on that blend of what he does versus what the three of us have been through musically. Like I said, it was a lucky thing. And, I listened to the record yesterday for the first time since it's been mixed, which is something I generally do. I finish a record and then I don't listen to it for a long time.
Okay.
And I gotta say, it's a great record, man.
It is. Now, today everybody's focused on singles, and the industry has changed so much. Everything's streaming online and, downloading and things like that. So how do you go about putting together an album, a whole cohesive album like this?
We don't think about the music business. That's not our job. You know what I mean? Our job is to just create, the best thing that we can do, something that we can live with, for eternity. When musicians start, getting into the music business, the music suffers, and you can see that by the current state of music that's available on the radio. Everything is designed, but we don't do that. We're too old to do that. We're not ever going to do that. So, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
Now, you guys, is it true that you played some dates, just a few last fall, with some of these songs?
That?
Did you play some dates last fall together as a group?
Yeah, we did. We did a lot of shows. We did 2 runs. We did about 24, 25 shows.
And what was
before we went in to finish?
What was the crowd response like to the new songs?
Well, we only played the 4 songs that were available online. We put songs up on like a Reverb Nation page. So the people that were there obviously were very aware of the band already. So they were familiar with those 4 songs, but the bulk of the set was, Poison, Cinderella, and LA Gun songs. So it was a really couldn't lose kind of situation.
Right. Are there any plans to do any touring now that the record's out?
Yeah, we really weren't going to, because we didn't think that, in today's, musical climate that anybody would really care. But the record's doing all right and people love it. So now we're kind of prompted to, to kind of do this for real. We're taking it very slow. But I wouldn't rule out within the next 4 months we would start a pretty big tour.
Okay, cool. Now, of course, you've all come from successful projects and bands, and everybody's got so many things going on. Do you see Devil City Angels being a long-term project for you guys? Would you like it to continue on?
Well, it's based on fans, you know what I mean? That's the kind of band it is. We delivered something to our fan bases, collectively, that we thought they would like, and now they're reacting in that way that they like it. So it's really dictated by, the audience. If as long as there's an audience there, and we can make music that we love and they love, then we can do it, until we die.
Now,
that's the thing about the band. Everybody in the band loves the band, so that's
right.
There's no problem.
Right. Cool. Now, I also read that you're going to be returning to Vegas for some Raiding the Rock Vault shows. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I had that. That's what I'm doing now. I'm getting ready for that. I start on the 7th of October, but I got to be there on Saturday to start kind of figuring it out, and then I'll do that. And then I have, and then that'll be like sporadic throughout next year as well. I'll probably do 4 or 5 months a year. I don't have to do it full time anymore, which is that was the problem before when I did it.
Right.
It's hard to live in a hotel in Vegas. It wasn't my dream when I was a kid.
Now,
that's a great show.
What's going on with Gunzo while all this other stuff's going on?
The second week I'm in Vegas, I actually have to take that week off. We're going to Mexico to do 3 shows with Quiet Riot.
Okay.
And then we have a whiskey show on the 22nd. Then I go back to Vegas. And then, what are we doing? And then, in December we got some shows. We're going to do a show at Bret Michaels in Wisconsin somewhere, and then we're going to start writing in January. You know, we're going to start, you know, writing and recording new music for that project too, and it's completely different from Devil City Angel. It's very metal. You know, it's very the flip side of feel good.
Right. So
it's feel bad.
So maybe a new Gunzo record sometime next year.
Yeah, that's the plan. But you know, God's laughing at us for sure because we have a plan. You know, so we'll see.
Okay, well that's cool. We'd love to hear something from them as well. Now, you've been in the business a really long time. You've been, you know, in rock and roll a long time. What's been your favorite thing about being in rock and roll, and what's the worst thing about being in rock and roll?
For me, there's not really a worst thing. You know, I mean, you know, the fact that, you know, I've been able to do this pretty much my whole life, really, if you think about it. You know, the best thing is I've been able to carve a spot to be creative, you know, for, you know, most of my life and the rest of my life. And that's the greatest thing. You know, I mean, that's obviously what I'm here to do, and so I get to do it, you know. So I'm not a frustrated musician. That's a great place to be. But, you know, on the flip side, I mean, that's part of, I think, you know, any creative process when it becomes commercialized is that, you know, you chase like some crazy success at certain points in your career, and then it goes away, and then you try to figure out how to get it back, and then, you know, by the time you're like 35 or 36, in my case, I was like, wow, I just don't care about the business. You know what I mean? Because you can't dictate it. You know, I mean, there are people that are experts at selling music that fail 90% of the time. You know what I mean? So, you know, as a creative person, you know, you got to really rely on other people to do that and hope that they're doing the best they can do. So that's the only negative side to, you know, having success at any point in your life, you know, playing a guitar, that you wonder at some point, well, where did it go? You know, where did the success go? But it comes back. You know, I mean, if you're truly great and you truly care about what you do, it's just a fickle business. You know, it comes in and it comes out. And the only advice I could give anybody is that, you know, don't lie to yourself. You know, that's the most common error in any business.
Right.
You know, people lying to themselves.
Cool. Now, if you could play one gig with any musician, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Rudy Sarzo.
Well, dream come true.
Period. End of story. Yeah. I've done that. I had a band with Nikki Sixx. That was a pretty big dream come true.
Right.
Yeah, I've done the cool stuff, man.
You're good.
I'm excited. Yeah. Any day I walk on stage with Rudy is the greatest day of my career.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. The album's great. I hope that everybody gives it a chance and takes a listen to it. I'm sure they'll be pleased. And I hope that you guys get to go out on the road, because we'd love to see some of these shows live. I think it would rock.
You got it. And thanks for taking your time to do this. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.